The all-hands meeting screen lit up with my schematic. Mark Harrison, our VP of Engineering, clicked through the slides like they were his bedtime story. "I led this breakthrough," he announced, chest puffed out. The auditorium erupted in applause. I sat frozen in the back row, my coffee cup trembling in my hand. That was my design. My patent. My year of sleepless nights. I pulled out my phone under the table and started recording the presentation reflected in my laptop screen. My heart hammered against my ribs, but I kept my face blank. I decided right then to say absolutely nothing yet. My name is Brooke Thompson, and I'm 32 years old. That moment in the auditorium changed everything. I drove home in silence, replaying Mark's smug voice in my head. The way he gestured at my diagrams like he'd drawn them himself. The way nobody questioned him. When I got to my apartment, I sat on the floor and let myself feel it. The betrayal burned hot in my chest. But underneath the hurt, something else grew. Something cold and calculated. If Mark wanted to play this game, I would play it better. I would play it smarter. And I would win. I spent that entire night laying out my proof on the living room carpet. My bound lab notebook with sewn spines that couldn't be tampered with. Every page dated and signed. Nightly code commits with timestamps stretching back 14 months. Screenshot after screenshot of my design iterations. And the crown jewel. The provisional patent I'd filed under my personal LLC 3 months before I even joined the company. I photographed everything from multiple angles. The evidence was overwhelming. But I knew evidence alone wouldn't be enough. I needed strategy. I needed to be 3 steps ahead at every turn. The next morning, I pulled out my employment contract. My hands shook as I flipped to the intellectual property section. There it was, buried in paragraph 7. Inventions, conceived or reduced to practice prior to employment, were excluded from company ownership if disclosed in writing within 30 days of hire date. I had done exactly that. I remembered the certified mail envelope, the careful letter explaining my prior work. The green receipt card sat in my files like a talisman. But the real question was whether the company had actually logged it. Time to find out. I drafted a careful email to Human Resources. Professional. Neutral. I simply asked for confirmation that my pre-employment disclosure had been received and filed per company policy. My finger hovered over the send button for a full minute before I pressed it. 2 days passed in silence. Then came the reply that made my stomach drop. "We can't locate your disclosure in our system." I stared at those words until they blurred. They couldn't locate it, or they wouldn't. I forwarded the certified mail tracking number and the signed receipt. Then I waited again. The silence was deafening. Fine. I'd rebuild the trail somewhere they couldn't erase it. Mark cornered me by the coffee machine on Thursday morning. His smile was all teeth and no warmth. "Hey, Brooke. Great presentation, right?" He poured himself an espresso, not looking at me. "Listen, team players don't obsess over credit. We're all family here." His hand landed on my shoulder, heavy and threatening. I smiled back, matching his fake warmth. "Of course, Mark. Family." As soon as he walked away, I pulled out my phone. Every chat message, every design note, every email where I'd explained my work to him. I forwarded them all to my personal email using the company's permitted forwarding policy for work-from-home documentation. The freeze started on Monday. My calendar invitations to roadmap meetings disappeared. My badge still opened doors, but I wasn't invited through them anymore. They reassigned me to customer support engineering, which was code for exile. I could feel the temperature drop every time I walked into a room. Engineers I'd mentored suddenly couldn't make eye contact. But I didn't complain. I didn't rage. I just started carefully CCing the legal department on every email that mentioned my original design. Paper trails don't lie. And I was building a trail they couldn't ignore. The product demo was scheduled for next week. I had plans for that. The demo day arrived with investors flying in from both coasts. Mark stood on stage in his expensive suit, demonstrating my prototype like a proud father. But I'd noticed something during testing. He'd replaced my carefully designed safety driver with his own shortcut version. Faster, he claimed. More efficient. Also unstable. Right on cue, the system sputtered and crashed. Mark's face went red. He glared at me in the wings, silently demanding I fix his mess. I walked on stage, calm as glass. 30 seconds later, the system purred back to life. The investors clapped. One of them asked for the technical brief in writing. I watched Mark's jaw clench. 3 days later, a form landed in my inbox. Inventor Contribution Assessment, read the subject line. I opened it with my heart in my throat. Mark's name sat at the top with 90% contribution. My name appeared below with 10%, like I'd just fetched coffee for his genius. My first instinct was to scream. Instead, I took a breath. Then another. I downloaded the form and opened my annotation tool. Next to each section, I added dates, commit logs, and notebook references. Where it asked for my signature, I wrote, unable to sign as presented. Documentation attached shows timeline inconsistencies. Requesting correction before signature. Then I submitted everything through the company's ethics portal. Ticket number, beautiful insurance. A recruiter from our biggest competitor called me that Friday. She wanted to meet for coffee, just to chat about opportunities. I almost said no. Then I thought about Mark's face during the demo. About the disappeared calendar invites. I met her at a cafe downtown, but I didn't jump ship. Instead, I did something smarter. I offered to license my pre-employment patent on a non-exclusive basis for their pilot program. Through my LLC. With my attorney present for every signature. The terms were clean, limited, and completely legal. When their counsel asked if I had any conflicts of interest, I smiled. No. This patent predates my employment. Everything's documented. Mark called an urgent meeting the following Tuesday. Celebration lunch, he'd written in the invite. When I arrived, it wasn't a restaurant. It was a conference room with 2 people from legal. Mark sat at the head of the table, practically vibrating with tension. Brooke, we need your signature today on the inventor form. Just a formality. He slid the paper across the polished wood. I picked it up and started reading. Every word. Every clause. The silence stretched out like taffy. Mark's knee bounced under the table. Finally, I looked up. I'd like to add one sentence before I sign. For clarity. Legal exchanged glances. Mark's smile flickered. What sentence? I wrote carefully in the margin. This contribution excludes all pre-employment intellectual property covered under Provisional Patent U.S. 2023-08473662, disclosed to Company Per Employment Agreement Section 7C on March 15, 2023. The legal team's faces went pale. Mark's knee stopped bouncing. He just stared. We'll need to review this language, the senior counsel said, standing up quickly. We'll be in touch, Brooke. They practically ran out. Mark stayed seated, his hands flat on the table. You think you're clever, he said quietly. You're not. I gathered my things. Then you have nothing to worry about. That same day, the purchase order from our competitor hit my inbox. My LLC's first real revenue. Procurement sent me a formal inquiry 2 days later. We've identified unusual licensing activity associated with your personal entity. Please explain. I'd been expecting this. I responded with a detailed timeline. Patent filed February 2023, employment started April 2023, disclosure sent March 2023, certified receipt attached. Every date backed up by documentation. Every dollar accounted for. Everything legal. I blind copied my personal attorney on the response. Within hours, someone escalated my case. I could feel the walls closing in, but not around me. Around Mark. The air in the office felt thinner. People whispered in corners. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from colleagues asking what was happening. Mark found me by the elevators on Thursday evening. The floor was nearly empty. He stepped close, blocking my path. You're going to tank this entire company with your ego, he hissed. His breath smelled like mint gum and desperation. I didn't step back. I kept my voice soft and level. Then don't build the company on fraud, Mark. His face went purple. He opened his mouth, closed it, then walked away. As soon as I got to my car, I forwarded the entire exchange to the outside attorney recommended by the ethics hotline. I included the timestamp and the security camera location. Never confront alone. Always document. Always protect yourself first. A calendar invitation appeared Friday night at 11 p.m., special committee review, confidential. Monday, 9 a.m. My name was the only attendee listed besides the committee. I sat at my kitchen table surrounded by stacks of paper like sandbags around a foxhole. My hair was in a messy bun, my eyes burned from screen time. But I was ready. I uploaded every document to the committee's secure portal. The provisional patent. The certified mail receipt. The original lab notebook photos. The commit history. The timeline showing Mark's lies. The portal timestamp on each file was automatic, permanent, and undeniable. They would see everything. No more silence. No more hiding. That same weekend, Mark posted photos from a company innovation offsite. Him at a resort with whiteboards covered in diagrams, caption reading, "Inventing the Future." The post had 23 likes when I screenshot it. But I noticed something interesting. The date stamp. The photo was taken the exact same week Mark claimed he'd built my driver module alone in the lab. I zoomed in on the image. The whiteboard sketches looked suspiciously like my notebook pages from months earlier. I saved everything. The photo. The metadata. The geotag showing he was 300 miles from our office. Geotags don't lie. People do. I filed the evidence in my growing folder. Monday morning, corporate counsel called me directly. Her voice was suddenly polite instead of dismissive. "Brooke, can you walk us through your documentation? We want to understand the timeline." I did. Crisply. Calmly. I explained every date, every filing, every piece of proof. When I finished, there was a long pause. "We'll be in touch very soon. Thank you for your thoroughness." I hung up and stared at the ceiling. Had I done enough? The answer came Wednesday morning. Our competitor issued a press release announcing their industry-first stability module for autonomous systems. In the fine print, clear as day, patent US 2023-0847362, licensed from Thompson Technologies LLC. My patent. My name. Our sales team went into crisis mode. Mark's Slack message appeared an hour later. "We need options. Fast." He didn't tag me, but I saw it. The panic was spreading. I opened my invoicing software and created a new document. License fee for non-exclusive use of patent US 2023-0847362 by current employer, matching market rate per their own procurement policy. I attached the contract language they'd written just last quarter about maintaining competitive parity in vendor relationships. It boxed them in beautifully. I sent the invoice to accounts payable and CC'd legal. Then I waited. The response took 6 hours. A calendar invitation for Friday morning. Attendees, CEO, CFO, General Counsel. Mark's name was notably absent from the list. I walked into that conference room wearing my best suit and my calmest expression. The CEO sat at the head of the table, jaw already tight. I presented everything methodically. The provisional patent filed before my start date. The 30-day disclosure with certified receipt. The inventor form manipulation. The complete audit trail. The competitor's license. Each document landed like a card in a growing house. When I finished, I slid one final envelope across the polished table. Inside were 2 items, a printed screenshot of the all-hands presentation with metadata showing I'd taken the original photos. And the resort geotag proving Mark wasn't in the lab when he claimed sole invention. The CEO exhaled slowly. "Thank you, Brooke. This is helpful. HR scheduled an organizational changes announcement for the following Wednesday. The entire engineering department was required to attend. I sat in the back again, just like during Mark's stolen presentation. But this time felt different. This time I wasn't frozen. The VP of HR took the podium. We're making some leadership adjustments in engineering. Effective immediately. Mark's title was being eliminated, she explained. The role would be restructured. My phone buzzed during the announcement. A message from accounts payable, wire transfer processed. Confirmation attached. I opened the attachment with shaking hands. The payment for my license. 6 figures. My throat tightened, but I didn't let myself cry. Not yet. Not here. 2 days later, the company issued a quiet press correction. Patent attribution updated to reflect sole inventor, Dr. Brooke Thompson. It was buried on page 3 of their investor relations site, but Slack caught fire anyway. My messages flooded with, "Did you see this?" and "What happened?" I responded to none of them. I was busy watching my doorstep through the window. The courier arrived at 4:30 p.m., carrying a large envelope with my name printed across the front. I signed for it with trembling hands. Inside was the first royalty check from the competitor's product sales. My name was centered on the paid line like proof I hadn't imagined any of this. I let myself cry then. 10 seconds. Then I breathed. I drafted my resignation letter that night. Short, professional, final. No bitterness, no accusations. Just facts. I resign effective 2 weeks from today. Thank you for the opportunity. I printed it on good paper and put it in my bag. The next morning, I dressed like I was already free. Clean blazer, favorite shoes, shoulders back. HR's smile trembled when I walked in. "Brooke, please sit. Is there anything we can do to make you stay?" I shook my head slowly. "You already did everything necessary." I slid my badge across the desk and kept my dignity. I walked out of that building without looking back. My phone buzzed twice. I ignored it. I was done with that chapter. The board meeting minutes leaked internally the next week. A colleague forwarded them to me, probably thinking I'd want proof. Mark had resigned to pursue other opportunities after significant process failures regarding intellectual property protocols. He lost the title, the bonus, the stock options. The shine he'd stolen from my work was gone. I deleted the email without responding. I didn't need their validation anymore. I had something better. I had the truth on paper. I had my name on patents and licenses. I had a growing LLC and 2 junior engineers I just hired to help scale the technology. I took my mother to dinner that Friday and told her everything. She squeezed my hand and smiled. The moral of this whole mess landed crystal clear in my mind during that dinner. Document everything, always. Every email, every sketch, every conversation. Believe in your work even when others try to diminish it. Never trade your name for someone else's comfort or convenience. Protect yourself first because nobody else will do it for you. Build paper trails that can't be erased. Know your rights and your contracts better than the people trying to exploit them. Stay calm when they expect you to rage. Let them underestimate you while you gather evidence. And when the time comes to strike, strike with facts, not emotion. The truth doesn't need volume to be heard. I don't look back at that office anymore. I don't pick up when old colleagues call asking for details or gossip. I'm too busy building what has my name on it. My LLC signed 3 new licensing deals this quarter. I'm hiring a 4th engineer next month. I bought a condo with a home office that has windows facing east. Every morning I sit there with my coffee, looking at the city waking up, and I think about that all-hands meeting. About Mark's smug voice claiming my breakthrough. About the moment I chose silence over confrontation. That silence wasn't weakness. It was strategy. It was patience. And it paid off in ways I never imagined. Some victories are loud. Mine was built in whispers, timestamps, and certified mail receipts.